I want to take a break on the one-on-ones and move into more of an interactive discussion about why we really are here today. Now, with many people having lost their jobs due to COVID-19, the aim of the panel discussion is to truly discuss how to stay resilient and also become a role model for others to move through leadership through crises. The impact of the crises is having on individuals and leadership alike. What are the sets of values that you want to possess as a strong leader during COVID 19? How do you truly create a workplace where employees are wary and ready for change and innovation? Joining our moderator Alok from LSF Global as a CEO, we also have Betty Samuel of GP Strategies, Sophia Nordengren of DLA Piper, Antonia Ng of Framework IO, and of course Ross Hui of Moody's Asia Pacific. So Alok, over to you.
Thank you very much. A quick check, Shalina. Can everyone hear me okay?
Absolutely.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you very much. So I got a great panel over here, and we're going to discuss resilient leadership. But before I do that, I just want to talk about one highlight about their careers. So let me start. I mean, it's going to be easier to start with the gentleman on the right, Ross. What I notice about Ross is that he really loves analytics, and there's a lot of data he uses in order to kind of come to people decisions. And we're going to get a little bit dive into that. Then we have Betty. On my right, and she is kind of has many hats. Apart from being a psychologist trained, apart from doing skill development, she's very passionate about change, and she's kind of actually looking after training for one of the largest, or maybe the largest private employer in Hong Kong, HSBC. So that's Betty. Then I have Sophia over here next to Betty. Sophia is very passionate about mindfulness, very passionate about wellness. And it's interesting, I was reading the story of Tony Hsieh, the Zappos guy who just recently passed away, and he was a role model for a lot of people. But I think mental wellness were the issues he was struggling with, and that's what all the news is saying. So maybe that is a really important part of it. And then I have Antonio, who's an innovator, architect, and multiple hats. And I always say that there's a beautiful mix over here of somebody who can employ you. We have a mix of somebody who can help develop your skills, and somebody who can give you jobs over here as recruiters as well. So without further ado, I'm going to jump in right into the conversation. What is the conversation today? Resilient leadership, right? Let's kind of try to first understand what resilient leadership means before we dive deeper into that. And for that, who better to invite for resilience than Sophia? Sophia, as you know, loves emotional intelligence, loves wellness, and I'm sure she will give us a beautiful definition of what resilience is. Sophia.
So resilient leaders, or us when we lead resilience, there are a few values that we should possess, in my opinion. We should be consistent. So that means that we need to behave in a consistent manner, and we need to walk the talk. So if we want to lead others, it is really important that we ensure that we follow our own advice. And also, it's very important to have a consistent story. So what I have seen with strong leaders leading others through this crisis is that they have a strong story and a strong narrative that they do tell people throughout this journey, and they take them on that journey and kind of create a journey together. The other thing that strong leaders need to possess is honesty. So I think it's really important that our leaders are honest with us and that we're honest with ourselves. It is a difficult time for most of us. We're all responding very differently to these times, but we do need to ensure that we recognize the difficulties that we have. And leaders need to be able to address that and trust that the people or the employees in our organization or whoever we are leading actually have the capacity to deal with the truth. Because I think we do. I think there is this perception that people will freak out if they actually face the truth. But most of us can handle it. And I think leaders really need to recognize that and have these honest discussions. Then the third one, and that's where the mindfulness come in, is really empathy. It is really important that our leaders possess empathy. All of these skill sets are not easy. So all of these values that I just talked about, they're not easy to demonstrate, right? And how can we tie these in with empathy? Well, again, that compassionate empathy is not easy, but by being consistent, by by talking the talk and walking the walk, and by also showing our people that we want to listen to them. So by having these regular check-ins with people, or again, if we're leading ourselves with ourselves, so checking in and seeing how are we doing, and being willing to accept the real response that are going to come from our people. I think something that's also really important right now is to understand that we can't always be our best.
Yeah. So I'm going to hold you on to that. And I really love what you said about, facing the truth. Right. And Betty, I'm going to invite you to say, what is that truth we are dealing with today? I mean, I know we had a great conversation on change, right? And what's your take? I mean, so what's the change which has happened in the world and what should people do?
Well, good question. And we could talk for hours on change, but all I would say is it's not just what has happened now. It happens very frequently in our life. It's just that it's in the limelight right now because all of us are in it together. But I've got only one thing to say, which pretty much reinstates that change. We've got two options. One is either you get bitter about it or you get better with it, right? So what is a choice that you make? It is an opportunity for most of us, be it in life decisions or career. And it's been really unfortunate that the year is tough. But change does happen every facet in our lives. So how do we look at this differently? It is an opportunity, and how do we make use of it? That is key. So, Alec, do you need to?
No. Absolutely. I love, and this is something I guess all of you should make a note. Change can either make you bitter or better. And I would add, choice is yours. And with that choice, maybe Antonio is kind of going to give us some light on what is the change which has impacted him. And I know Antonio recently, let go of the comfort or the security of a large organization in order to kind of get into something which is truly passionate about. So Antonio, what kind of changes made you better or bitter? What would you say?
Well, I guess I have always been the optimist. I've never sort of looked at change in a wary kind of way. So I guess I am taking it for the better, hopefully not for the bitter. So I feel that now is a good of a time as ever to really sort of, sort of make that transformation. Whether you're in a large organization, gather around your workforce, your troops, your teams, and refocusing them on sort of transforming what's needed for a post-COVID world, or working on yourself, both mentally, I think like Sophia was speaking to, as well as, on paper, your skill set, mindset and skill set. So that's how the way I would look at it.
Yeah, no, thank you, Antonio. And I know we need to work on ourselves, but before we start working on ourselves, I want to talk about consequences. And, I just alluded to Tony Shi from Zappos, who recently passed away. What are the consequences you are seeing? And I know we had a nice conversation on the impact employees are having, on the challenges they're facing. So, before we get into solutions, before we get into remedies, what are the challenges you see around people are facing in this COVID-19 world?
I think definitely is communication. I think it's quite echoing what Sophia mentioned, which is the resilient leadership. Frankly, my population usually consists of those Asian leaders that are not really good at communications. I think in the beginning of the COVID-19, quite a number of employees, they got it lost. What should we do? What will be the new life? When will the office be opened in the very beginning? Is it open in 2 weeks' time, 4 weeks' time? What are the company doing? What happened if I got infected? There are so many questions around our employees. They're very, very lost. I think one of the challenges, how can leaders cascade a very consistent message and be honest to them? The office won't be opening that soon. It won't be in weeks' time, in months' time. I think that would be one of the very crucial challenges we're facing. Of course, the mental wellness is another thing that employees feel a little bit burnt out. I think not really freak out because of the COVID-19 situations, but they are now they have no idea how to deal with the new normal. I use this word.
Yeah, no, no, absolutely. And essentially what you alluded to, I would call that, the challenges in-house management or HR has to help and support the employees we are working there. Now, I mean, say that is one challenge or one area of challenge, Betty. But there are a lot of people, which I'm sure, and you managed to kind of protect jobs in your case, but a lot of people are not so safe. And a lot of people have lost jobs. So talk to me about people who have lost job. What happens if they don't manage their resilience? If they don't show up well in interviews, what are the consequences of that? And can it like be faked? Can you just kind of walk into interview and act confident if you are depressed internally? So talk to the people who kind of have to show up on interviews. What is that they can do so that they can show up authentically as who they are and confident?
It's very interesting that you mentioned the word authentic because that's very key. Um, so, can you just get up and go to an interview if you're depressed and act confident, or what do they call it? Fake it till you make it.
Yeah.
Not really. Yeah, because remember you may falter somewhere. So, what is the core? What is important is for you to own this journey. Firstly, make up your mind that you are in a situation, assess the situation. So it can be two ways, right? People who think they're going to lose a job and people who have lost a job, right? The course of action for both is different. So you need some self-reflection. What is it that you want to do, right? How do you gain your confidence? How do you pick yourself up? You're depressed. What is depressed? Is it on the job? Is it about your skills? Try and ask yourself questions more. And that's what I personally feel, because you can't just go there and say, okay, fine, I'm more into human resources, but because it is all, but digital and everything else, I now need to do a programming course. Not necessarily. Why don't you look at your skills and draw parallels to it? Try and take care of yourself to first get your mental well-being in place, right? Ask for help. Be authentic. There is nothing to be, shameful about, because all of us are in the same boat. Trust me. It doesn't matter if you're a leader, you're an individual contributor. Trust me when I say everybody's got their challenges. So, can they fake it till they make it? No, they will need to fix themselves.
Yeah, and talking about fixes, and there are two fixes I want to talk about now. One is the fixing of the self, right? Let's call that self-leadership for simplicity. And another is kind of the technical fix, right? So whether do I need to do a technical Python course or big data because everyone is doing it. So there's a second fix for which I'm going to come to Antonio, right? But let's go to how to fix yourself first, emotional. So Sophia, can we talk about rituals? Can we talk about techniques people can use so that they can be that authentic, resilient person rather than faking it? Sophia.
Absolutely. There are many things that we can do. In fact, there's so many things, so you might need to decide what you would like to do. But I think Betty really got the key of it. The first thing we really need to do is to check in with ourselves, because we are all different. We all have different responses to this and to the COVID situation and to stress. Some of us are more naturally resilient, some of us are not. But don't give up, because we can all improve our resilience. And there are certain things that I would do. And Alok talked about rituals. So first of all, do an inventory. Look at yourself. What are you feeling? Note down your feelings. Be honest with yourself. Narrow in on that feeling. So don't be very broad. Just narrow in on it. You might even want to write it down. After that, just be honest. Write every feeling down. You might want to look at those and then actually look at what is the narrative. Again, I'm talking about the narrative. But what is the narrative that you're telling yourself? Is it helpful? Is it unhelpful? Maybe, again, write down helpful narrative, unhelpful narrative. Then something that you might want to do is to create an action item list after that. So once you have a helpful narrative that you like, things that you're worrying about that are actually realistic. So, for example, there's a big risk you're going to lose your job. You have lost your job. You need to find another job. Those are realistic worries, right? Then there are lots of worries that are not really realistic. For example, oh, if I don't find a job, the whole world is going to fall to pieces. You start to catastrophizing, right? That's not really helpful. So what you want to do is to go into those helpful worries that you do have. Worrying is natural. I also want to reassure you that worrying is natural. We all worry, and we should not be ashamed that we worry. We do. So look at that list, divide that, and take some action items. Secondly, so that's really looking at your narrative. After that, you have to obviously start to act on those action items. And something that will really support you in that is obviously focus management. So it doesn't matter how much you really want to accomplish certain things. If we can't focus because we're crippled by anxiety, we can't really do that. So we need to start to learn to divert our focus. And that is not to say that we avoid the elephant in the room, right? Because if I tell you not to think about an elephant, you are going to think about an elephant. So if I tell you not to think about your worries, you are going to think about your worries. But divert again that attention to what you can do to help those worries. And something that really will help you is to create a time when you can worry. So create a worry time. For me, I worry in the evening before I go to bed, a few hours before bed, so not just before. But I have a journal and I write down what I'm grateful for. There's always something I'm grateful for. And I would surprise you, I used to be a pessimist, and I'm a massive optimist now. And that is really gratitude, 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 gratitude. I started to force myself to feel gratitude for everything, turn everything on its head. What's the good thing that I can take out of this situation? And it wasn't easy, but eventually it came naturally to me. But I still do gratitude journaling every now and then. And then I write down everything I'm worried about, and it really helps. And then again, let's not forget the small things that are the big things. That means go to bed at the same time, get up at the same time. Even if you don't feel like it, do some exercise, be a walk, something, do it. Ideally do it at the same time every day, because if you're not working in an office, we do need those rituals. We do need to have some sort of structure in our lives. Eat on regular times, eat relatively healthy, whatever that means for you. That's really important.
Thank you, Sophia. And I know you can give 100 things for them to do, but my favorite here is journaling and actions, right? And clearly, I mean, say I've seen the power of journaling, but I guess if you don't derive actions from journaling, we got a problem over there. So Antonio, I mean, say talking about self-leadership, and I'm sure, you know, you being the optimist, and she turned the optimist from the pessimist. And I don't want to talk about optimism, and I don't want to talk about pessimism. I want to talk about realism. So in terms of what reality is, and I being a person who worked in the company and then transitioned over business, I can safely say it's the toughest job on the planet, guys, right? And you are kind of running a business now. So what are the challenges you have gone through, and what is your recommendation? Is there a career opportunity for people to kind of stop looking at the traditional jobs and maybe follow the passion in this downturn?
For sure, you hit on one of I think the big mega trends that's coming forward for the next 10 years. It's what I guess they're calling it the gig economy, right? And it's really sort of people who are looking to have more flexibility, control over their lives, and yet be able to sort of, follow their passion, and really sort of do what they want to do and make a decent living out of it, and have a career out of it. We have seen these trends already for the past sort of 10 plus years, and COVID has, I think, really for the most part accelerated many of these changes or trends or innovation, whatever you call it. And I think we'll be seeing that more and more post COVID. So I think definitely, I think it's more empowered to the individual. And these days, there's so much information out there, self-help, self-learn, in terms of the skills aspect, obviously mental health aspect for sure, the skills aspect as well. And a good example would be Elon Musk learned how to send a rocket up to the sky by himself. No one taught him how to do SpaceX. He figured out himself. So I think those are sort of the models that we can look towards to inspire us, that we can empower ourselves. We believe in ourselves. The hope is out there.
Yeah, and I have a follow-up question on Elon Musk. I guess that was a great example, flying a rocket, and alluding to what Betty said. Not everyone should fly a rocket, right? Or not everyone should do something which they are not into or not their strengths. So, how does one choose what dimension or what domain to choose? Does one choose Python because everyone is doing it, or someone choose something around management or project management? What's your take on how should one make the right choices in terms of career or passion?
Yeah, maybe I should sort of refer back to something I learned as a future strategist. Future strategy really sort of teaches one to look at sort of the three different dimensions. One is sort of the mega trends, right? What's going on, urbanization, climate change, the gig economy. These are all mega trends. So obviously, we kind of have some idea of what could happen in the next 10, 20, 30 years, right? Then the other aspect of it is what you call the outer world, which is sort of the world immediately outside your bubble, which is sort of, I guess in our context would be Hong Kong, would be Asia, would be South China. So what are sort of the influences and the trends that could happen? And then lastly, I think it's sort of going back to what Sophia talked about is look into yourself, right? It's the inner world. So your skill set, your mentality, your mindset towards it, your interest, your passion. And once you have aligned those, then I think you will have an idea of what you would want to do or where you should be heading.
Yeah. No, thank you very much, Antonio, for that. And, this is all kind of self-initiative. And Ross, I'm sure as a company, you help people kind of become resilient, get new skills, right? So what is your recommendation for companies, learn and what you observe others doing? What should they do to empower employees to become more resilient?
I think definitely is something you've got to start at the top. I think that would be very crucial. The resilient leadership is something you have to sponsor it or be demonstrate by your senior management. Just like my company, actually there's some pushback. I like to share what happening in initially we don't know the divide 19. There's very strong pushback in our region for the remote working arrangement. They always ask the same question: when will the office be resumed? Especially, I think that's something quite unique for APAC. Especially the recovery of APAC used to be a little bit faster comparing to US and America and EMEA. But our senior management, they walk the talk. They receive the feedback. They know there are some conscious or some uncomfortable about employees to get back to the office. They try to send a message to all the employees to make it very explicit that you can go to your home country. Your work from home will last till say September 30th this year, further extended to June 30th next year. I think that would be a very good example for company to try to practice resilience, something from the top. And also, I think how to get the employee or people be enabled. I think that would be something you have to think about. As what I said, communication is the missing piece. How to communicate honestly, what's happening? Are you going to hide the fact? Are you going to share what exactly happening in the workplace? I think that would be very crucial to be honest and also respond to your employees. I think from I hate to push back to the analytical standpoint, but I think that's something unprecedented. I think we always use the word unprecedented in the workplace. You have to check in with your employees what's happening. That would be something you have to leverage data to do some pulse survey, to check in, are they doing well? What are the missing pieces? And respond to their need, respond to their feedback. I think that would be very crucial as well.
Yeah. No, thank you very much for that. And that's beautifully kind of moving into leading others, right, Betty? Because I know you're a great leader. You got about 70 people. Is that right? A team, approximately. And that's a huge team to lead. And clearly what we spoke about just now, for everyone's recap, is we spoke about what is affecting, what's intelligence, and finally, what are the rituals you can do to lead yourself. But then now a lot of you are leaders, a lot of you have teams to motivate, inspire, and clearly the first step is to inspire yourself. How do you inspire others if you're not inspired yourself? So that is something you need to do as a first. But now you're kind of in the job, you need to inspire others, even friends, even families. You need to be that role model. So Betty, in your world, what is that you're doing to kind of motivate others as a people leader? Share some practices about that to us.
Well, it's interesting. And again, it's not prescriptive because this is just an example of what I would do. But again, this is not one size fits all. So, like Sophia had rightly measured earlier, it's about what suits you and fits you well. So, in my case, I pride myself, like I said, I love the word authentic. So, I pride myself in being authentic. What that means is, whatever I do promise, I do keep up to it. When I tell them back, I do have their back, right? We've got wellness centers, we've got small bite-sized sessions, which is an open door talk, which is virtual, which I put it across for all my 70 employees, irrespective of hierarchy, irrespective of title. So it is someone who can come in there, leave their comments anonymous, or come in there, check in, and talk to me. So there is no barriers over there. And also, one of the things that's worked well for me is, to be honest, like I said, so I've asked for help. So there have been so many situations, and one of the things that you rightly pointed was saving all the jobs. Did we make sacrifices? Of course we did, but were we in it together? We were, because my team took the responsibility, so did I, to be in it and reinvent, reinvigorate, and revitalize our skills so that we had, basically fungible skills that we could use on different accounts, not only just one account, right? And there was a time, I think it was in February, that I was strapped for choices. I didn't know. So I asked my team, what do you think we should do? And then there were a flurry of responses. It was an intellectual, how do you say, debate, discussion. Some worked, some didn't. But, it was being inclusive and it worked for me.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, like I tell my team, and it's a very famous quote, that, it is okay to accept finite disappointment than to lose infinite hope.
Wow. Love that. Well, that deserves an applause. Yeah, no, absolutely. It's okay to kind of, and just taking a moment to reflect on that finite disappointment. And I guess what you alluded to, Betty, I would call that collaborative leadership, right? And I want to open this question to everyone. If there's anything you want to talk about, how we can increase this collaboration in this COVID world. But I also want to kind of check with Shalina if there are any questions from the audience we want to take. And I'm going to just open to the audience collaborative leadership and then come back to you, Shalina, in a minute. So collaborative leadership, how can we be more collaborative as leaders? And anyone who can add to what you saw working.
I think
Yeah,
I think goes back to sort of I guess the mindset. I mean, I think when I remember when sort of COVID first happened, it became really difficult immediately to meet face to face. So you really sort of reaching out to people other than your contacts, your existing contacts. You just sort of reaching out to people and have an open mind. And I think that we all sort of carry that spirit around with us, that we'll get more done and we'll overcome more difficulties. And then the other thing is obviously the digitalization, right? So I think the more you're fluent and comfortable with a lot of the digital tools that are out there and the forms of communication and collaboration. There are a lot of collaboration tools now that goes beyond just communicating and being able to sort of work on documents and projects together in remote locations in real time. And so making use of those platforms and those tools will also help.
Yeah, no, I'm saying what I'm picking up from you is technology has been a savior, right? Without technology, collaboration would be very difficult, and clearly checking in communication, Ross, through the word communication, absolutely. And I guess everyone directly or indirectly is talking about how much more we should communicate. So, Shalina, kind of checking with you, do you have any questions for us?
We have two questions, as a matter of fact. Actually, let me just raise them within the room here. How often should following your passion supersede one's career's decision making? Let me repeat that. How often should following your passion supersede one's own career decision making?
So I'm going to kind of, let you think on that. And that's a very tricky one because, I mean, say here you have passion and maybe here you have $1 million job.
Yeah, well, I'm just very curious on whoever asked the question, because then I have a question back to you. Is your career not your passion? Because that's more interesting for me, because, you know, when you say passion, is it an interest or is it your career? Because I'm very passionate about my career. So am I talking about, you know, is it something that's my interest versus my career, or is it, you know, I would personally think you should be in a job that you're passionate about. And that's very honest from my point, because I would think it's the same.
No, clearly, Betty, I guess, is very fortunate and she's black and white, right? So either this or that. But working as a career coach, I can tell you that 90% people are not
passionate,
doing a job which they are passionate about. And Sophia has a take on that.
Well, I can share because I actually am educated as a lawyer and I'm not working as a lawyer. I'm working with learning and development. And when I studied law, there was a point, I was working as a lawyer for a little while, international lawyer. When I was working, there was a point where I realized I really, really did not enjoy what I was doing. And it was not what I wanted to do. And I knew I wanted to work with people, through people. And I read about people like Luke, coaches, career coaches, people that develop people, and they actually make an income doing that. And I was like, what? Does that actually exist? I didn't even know it existed, right? And somehow I started to open myself up to that possibility. And I started meeting people that were doing it. And I started talking to them. And eventually I kind of fell into a job that led to exactly that, learning and development. And I realized, wow, this is really my passion. But what really happened is once I realized that I was in a job that I did not enjoy, and I've invested so much into that career. Like I paid for my own degree. I had worked so hard. It was literally, I put my whole heart and soul into being a lawyer, honestly. So for me, that was devastating. So I do understand the question, and I really had to take a long look in the mirror and go, what do I want to do? What makes me tick? And it wasn't an easy exercise because, again, I didn't even know these jobs existed really, where I thought they exist somewhere, but it's not very common and it's almost impossible to get a job like that and actually make an income. And suddenly that's what I'm doing, and it's taken a few years. So I would say be realistic. Obviously, we have financial commitments. So we may need to ensure that we have an income. But the first thing is really to look at what makes you tick. And I agree to a certain extent, we shouldn't work with things that we're not passionate about. No, yeah, like it's, and we can't, okay, and one more thing, we can't be passionate all the time, right? There are aspects, Betty, correct me if I'm wrong, but there are surely aspects of a role that are not wonderful the whole time.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, well, I didn't mean to say that, you know, you can't be absolutely unpassionate or, you know, my intention was that there should be something in it that you're doing that you should be passionate about. So going back to the question, I would favor going for your passions, but again, being realistic, because it doesn't mean that you leave everything and, you know, just, you know, take the plunge. If opportunity provides you with it, why not? But I would definitely go for passion.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And passion is something very interesting. Like, I guess one of the challenge people have, they don't even know what their passion is. And that's a bigger struggle. So Antonio, you seems as if found your passion. So how did you discover what you want to do in life?
I would say, I mean, I've always sort of interested in sort of being design. And I brought up in the family. Actually, my father's an architect, so I think it sort of runs in the family. But for me, it's always sort of finding that greater purpose. And for me, the upcoming challenges with climate change, how to adapt to climate change, and we're all in this together, similar to the pandemic. and we all have to work together to sort of get through this. And for me, is sort of the bigger calling that can parlay my skills in architecture, construction, and in innovation towards that.
Yeah, no, that's quite interesting because I guess you know what you're talking about beautifully takes us to the future. You know, how does the future look like? And clearly, you know, people are talking about vaccine for God knows how many months, and I don't know till the time we get injected with one. And I'm not going to be the first one in the queue for sure. Maybe the last one. Till the time those normalization happen, and that's why you know our topic is for a COVID-19 world. We did not say pre or post because we are going to be here for a couple months or God knows maybe years. So, what is the future for you, Ross? How are you looking at the future, and how should one prepare as a resilient leader?
First of all, the future. I definitely find that it is something, an opportunity for the organization to think about how to structure their workforce. Maybe, I mean, in the old days, they spend huge amount of money to do the traveling, to do the meeting. And also there are quite some, sadly, working mom quit the workforce because of the family burdens. Guess what? The labor force participation rate for Hong Kong for the married women is talking about 60 something percent, which is far lower than the married men is talking about 95%. But how to accommodate, how to get the very competent women workforce, women back to the workforce, I mean, that would be an opportunity and also help you to build your or cope with your employee value proposition, which is how to strike the work life and personal life or your family life, not necessarily kids or your elderly, that kind of things, because we are so get used to remote working right now. Definitely, it proven to be work quite well as well. So that would be the I think that would be the future. How to think about to make it an advantage for your company to attract the competent individuals and also retain your manpower. Secondly, how to be resilient leaders. I think be authentic. I think I would like to echo Sophia's word, which is be authentic. It's something very important because how to communicate the right thing, be true, be honest. I think that would be very crucial for the employees to feel respect and to feel valued and know the directions to make sure you're collaborating because you're not communicating well or you're not authentic. We are working towards different directions. I think be authentic will be my thought as well.
Yeah. So, you know, the future is here to stay, or COVID is here to stay. So any other thoughts on what should people do to prepare for the future? Because clearly 2020 is gone. And, you know, there are a lot of people which are making memes about 2020, you know, it never came, it went away, whatever it is. 2020 was here, that's reality. And I wouldn't be surprised 2021 is going to be like 2020, but I can guarantee my bottom dollar is going to be better than 2020 because we're entering it prepared. So what is that, you know, we can do to prepare for 2021? Any takes, any thoughts from anyone? Open question.
Yeah, well, it's very simple for me. So it is unlearn the old and build on the new.
Love that.
So as simple as that. So I would not want to speak about it anymore. It's as simple as that because we are in a situation and we'd only get better with it should we take ownership. So
Yeah,
you want
absolutely.
wanna
Sophia.
No, she took my word. Take ownership. I think this is the time where we really need to look at ourselves and start to take ownership. Take ownership for your own psychological well-being and for the well-being of others. Take ownership for your own career. Learn the skill set. Look at yourself. Look at what you want to learn, what you want to do, and take those actions. Don't expect anyone else to do it for you, because really, the people that learn to take that ownership, those are the ones that are going to come out of this better. We're going to come out of this not coping but thriving, and I think there is an opportunity to thrive here even though it's a difficult time. And so please take that ownership.
Yeah, no, thank you. I love ownership, and I also love the quotation. I didn't know that, you know, Betty is good with quotation and expressions. I totally love that. Unlearn the old and learn the new. All right, we're coming to an end, and before I end, I'm going to invite everyone to give a closing message for our dear audience. And also be reminded, these going to be edited into a beautiful video, which is going to be there to stay. So your wisdom is going to last forever on the internet. So the point I want to make is that each one of you has shared a lot of stuff today, right? And if I can put a structure to it, we spoke about the current crisis, we spoke about self-leadership, we spoke about leading others, resilience, and the future. And before I invite you to give a message, one favorite message in one line or two, in two lines to our audience, what would that be? So maybe we can start with Ross and just go from that.
My takeaway or my underlying message will be you have to get used to the new normal, be agile. I like the word ownership and take the ownership of the mental wellness, not yourself, but the people around you as well. Because my experience tells me that quite a number of individuals, they don't care about their own mental wellness, and also they won't care about the people around them. So I think take the ownership for yourself, and also be loved the one.
Thank you, Ross.
Yeah, I just go into more for leaders, and it's just, my thought that, again, as you mentioned, quotes. So I just give a part of a quote that, ideally be human, be authentic, and don't try and be a seeker of consensus, but try and be a molder of consensus. And that would help the organization as well as yourself. That's what I think.
Thank you, Betty.
Okay, so an old Greek maxim, know thyself. Again, everything we talked about is really self-knowledge, but it is really important that you know yourself, you know what makes you stressed, you know what makes you thrive, and you also know what skills what your strengths are, what skills you have, and what your weaknesses are. It's really important, and work on those.
Thank you.
My message would be get started as soon as possible. Get started preparing yourself or your workforce for the changes and innovations that's coming ahead, lying ahead for the post-COVID world. If you're looking in the future, you're looking ahead, you're looking at how to come out stronger and thriving. And that's really the way to go about doing it. And now it's good as the time ever to unite yourself, gather your thoughts or your workforce, your teams, and to really sort of focus on the common goal and transform.
Yeah, thank you very much. And that was great. And just to wrap up everything, I just want to leave you with one thought from myself. Resilience for me is bouncing back. And it is okay to fall, and all of us fall. Maybe you fell down because you lost a job. Maybe you fell down by losing an employee. Maybe you fell down because your business is dipping. But it is not okay to not bounce back as soon as you can. Take a day, take a month, take a year, but bounce back. And that is resilience leadership for us. Thank you very much for listening to us. And I hope you found this valuable. Back to you, Shalina.
Well, thank you so much to the panelists and Alok. I thought this really was breathing a lot of optimism. So thank you so much for that.